To get started using your new smartboard, first thing we need to do is familiarize ourselves with the Smart Notebook 11, which is the software that we're going to use to create our documents to use with our smartboard. So I'm going to go to my icon and open it up, and it'll take just a minute to open. Now, this is a new document. I have three toolbars in Smart Notebook. I have the one across the top, I have the one on the right, and there's one behind the arrow here on the left. On the left, the gear-shaped icon here on the bottom, if I click on it, I can come to the orient. That is orienting the board is something you would do to begin with. If your board is mounted on the wall and your projector is mounted from the ceiling, you don't have to orient very often. If you notice when you're writing on your board that your letters are not appearing where you wrote, then you might reorient your board. But if everything is mounted solidly to the wall or to the ceiling, you probably won't need to do this very often. So I'm going to close this menu by clicking on that arrow. It's always handy there, but I like to leave it shut so it's not on the middle of my document. So to get started, across the top, one of the very first things I'm going to do is I'm going to add text. So two icons that I want to be familiar with. The arrow that's currently in blue is my select. That's where I am a lot of the time. That's the icon that I'm using most of the time. If I want text, I'm going to click on the A to get my text. And I have a menu here. I can change the color of my text. I can change its transparency as to how well it shows up or if it fades into the background. I can change the size of my text. I can change my font. There's some presets here already that I can select if I like. I can boldface it, I can italicize it, I can underline it. I'm just going to choose this. That gives me a Times New Roman at size 24. Now, wherever I click down here, it's going to automatically open a text box. And I'm going to use today's date. As if I was creating a document to use with my classroom, that's the first thing I would do is put the date on it so that I remember what date it was that I used that document. It also helps if I'm recording things to post on a website for students who are absent. Now, I have two choices here. I can enter and add more lines to this text box and then post a question that my students are supposed to answer at the beginning of class. So how many feet are in 3 miles? Now, if I click off here once, then I just have my text there. If I click a second time, it opens a new text box. Since I don't want another text box, I'm going to go back to my select tool. And that removes my editing for my text. And it also allows me the ability to click on the text and hold my mouse and drag it and reposition it on the screen. Now, I like my header in my text to be larger than the text itself. So I'm going to open up my text box again just by double clicking on the text. I'm going to highlight my header and I'm going to increase the font size to make it larger and make it stand out more. I might even choose to change its color. Now the header and the text are easily distinguished by the visual color change and size change. Other things that I would want to do to get started using my software is this might be the opening question for my class for the day, and then I want to put another task on the smartboard for my students to do as well. So I'm going to add a page. To add a page, I can come up here to the top and I have the blue arrows. Put my mouse over this. It comes up with the title of next page. If I click on it, it gives me a second blank page. So for this page, I'm going to add some text also. And I'm going to ask my students to graph these points. Now I'm done with adding my text, so I'm going to go get my arrow. I have my points listed that I want my students to graph. Now, if they're graphing these points, it would be nice to have a graph on my screen as well. So I'm going to come to my gallery. It's the second item, looks like a picture. And I'm going to put my search term across the top. In this case, I'm looking for an XY axis. And I have a picture here. If I click on my picture, I have a menu that says I can copy it, and then I would paste it over here, or I can hold my mouse down and drag it and drop it onto my screen. Either one works. Now, if I wanted to resize this, if I find one of my corner arrows, I can grab a corner and I can shrink this down a bit so that everything fits on one screen. Now, in the process of working through this with students, if I needed more space and I just found that my screen wasn't big enough, at the bottom of my screen I have the blue Extend a Page, and I can click on that and it will increase the length of the page itself. If I decide we continue our conversation and I want to use another example, I can click in and add a new page at any time. You can do that using the smartboard itself, or as I'm doing right now, just on my computer. To get back to the page I had before, I click the previous page arrow and it takes me back. One final feature that you might like just to get started with your smartboard is to be able to import a picture. So if you were teaching an English class or a social studies class, you might have a picture or a map that you'd like to include in your presentation that you're building. So I'm going to go to a new page. I'm going to come to my Insert menu across the top, and I'm going to insert a picture. And it's going to go to my documents. I'm going to go to my pictures, and then I want to locate a picture to import. And I'm just going to import a picture of my cute little guy. This image is large. It can optimize the file by reducing the image size, and I'm going to tell it to optimize because my picture is big. And then I can go grab the corner of it, and I can shrink the picture down so that it's actually visible on my page. Still too big. Let's shrink it a little bit more. And that's all there is to importing a picture. So once you've found a picture that you want to use, put it in your documents so you know where to find it. And then we go to the Insert and Picture, and then we locate our picture that we want to use.